Welcome to the Power Hour. I'm your host, Lacy Stockton, and I'm very excited because we have with us today a special guest. He is the general manager of Chelan County PUD. He is a board member of American Public Power Association and the Alliance to Save Energy. And for over a dozen years, he led the Bonneville Power Administration, or the BPA, which is the federal agency that generates about 30% of all the electricity generated in the Pacific Northwest. He was just awarded the Energy Efficiency Community's equivalent of the Nobel Prize and has been awarded many, many other public service awards. Oh, yeah. Today we have Steve Wright joining us to answer all of your questions before he retires at the end of the month. Let's jump in. Hey, Steve, how are you?
Hey, Lacy, I'm great. And let me say, I'm honored to join you, the incredibly creative Lacy Stockton, who's come up with this great idea for the Power Hour and all of the incredible animation
Thank
that
you.
comes with it. And by the way, you did something that I've always wanted to have happen. You made me a left-hander throwing that pitch, which maybe I would have had a chance at actually playing a little more baseball than I got to play if I would have been a left-hander. So, thank you
It's
for that.
true. You're welcome. And, I am very surprised and happy that you're joining us on the Power. We'll say it's hard to avoid coming on a award-winning live stream. That's right, the Power Hour won the Excellence in Public Communications Award from the American Public Power Association. I just wanted to announce that live on the stream. So
Yeah,
thank you.
that is super cool. And, there are over 2,000 members of the American Public Power Association. So let's be clear, that is a big time national award to win. Congratulations to you and
Yeah.
others who are helping you put this together.
Absolutely. It's 100% about the guests. And so I want to dive right in. There were some people who sent me some questions, and some of them are a little bit heavy hitting. So hopefully you brought your left hand. And some of them are going to come in through the chat, and we'll bring a little bit of levity in here. Look, even Mary is giving you some applause today. Hi, Mary. Thanks for joining us. If you, the listeners, have any questions for Steve, drop them in the chat, and he is going to be happy to answer them today. Okay. Your very first question, Steve, is about rooftop solar. So this is a bit longer of a question that I'm going to read from Jean. So she says that she is delighted to know that you love our area and that you're planning to stay even after you retire at the end of the month. But when you are no longer a pragmatic businessman and you're starting to see drought conditions creep northward, how do you feel about rooftop solar as an investment we can make now for the future?
Oh boy, that's such a big question. So let's start from the biggest component, which is we need a heck of a lot more renewables added to our system to meet the clean energy transformation goals in Washington State. But it's not just that. For all of the clean energy goals that have been established by states across the West, California, Oregon, Colorado, Nevada, Arizona. So we need a lot more renewables. In general, when you look at the cost effectiveness of the various types of renewables, rooftop solar is substantially more expensive than the large solar arrays, what's usually referred to as utility scale solar, and even community solar is generally more cost effective than rooftop solar. But we need a heck of a lot. So, I mean, the challenge always is how do we come up with the things that will allow us to achieve our big clean energy goals for the West and at the same time try to keep rates affordable. Rooftop solar has been popular because there's been a lot of folks who have been willing to invest their own money to do it, honestly. And they have a commitment to a clean energy agenda, and so they want to pursue it. And I think what we as utilities want to do is try to make sure that we do three big things: that we pursue the clean energy agenda and accomplish all the things that the public wants us to accomplish. We keep rates affordable, and we maintain reliability on the system. To me, those are the three guiding lights for us in the utility industry. And we're always trying to figure out how we achieve all three pillars of that three-legged stool. So
Okay, so reliability, affordability, and the third one was clean
clean.
energy? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, carbon-free in particular are the biggest goals. So we want to support the people who want to take action. And in fact, we've been reforming some of our programs here around solar so we can support people that want to take their own action. And we want to keep our eye on the bigger picture and make sure that we're getting all the most cost-effective resources accomplished.
So what other cost-effective resources do we have? I mean, we've got a lot of hydropower in the Northwest, which is a really big gift. But what other kinds of clean energy besides rooftop solar, as Jean points out, would you be considering right now?
Well, again, it's going to be a lot of wind and solar, and the utility scale wind and solar tends to be the most cost effective. And then you look at where do you get the biggest bang for the buck. And for example, in wind, we have built a lot of the wind in the best places in the Northwest already. We did that uh, 10 years ago. The most cost-effective places for wind right now are Montana and Wyoming, and the challenge there is building the transmission in order to be able to get it back to where the load is, which is mostly on the west side, and particularly the west side of the Cascades. Uh, Solar, latitude does matter. So, the most cost-effective solar installations are in our southern, but solar is becoming more cost-effective in the Northwest, and so there are opportunities to do solar in the Northwest, and I think the best opportunities are probably going to be our region and to the east of us. It looks like the bigger, flatter areas that without trees, candidly, that helps too. All of that looks like probably the best places, and you can see that beginning to show up in the utility integrated resources plans where the utilities don't have enough generation to serve load. Now that's not Chelan County because we have so much hydropower, we have way more than we need to serve load. But for those that do, their solar opportunities are showing up in those integrated resource plans.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, some of the states, particularly as you mentioned down south, California, Arizona, even Texas, they're starting to bring more solar online. It's still not a giant portion of their portfolio, but it is coming online. And with it, they're trying to figure out, okay, how can we how can we apply batteries or other sources to balance it out? Because if the sun's not shining, the wind's not blowing, you still probably want to turn on your light at night. And so that's where resources like hydropower can come in and really backfill some of that power. Cool.
Yeah, so well said. I mean, we just are blessed here to have a carbon-free resource that is affordable. And of the different types of generating resources, there are lots of characteristics that you need in generation to maintain reliability. And hydropower is not just the premier renewable resource, it's the premier generating resource for providing those reliability characteristics. You have to have reserves available. So what if a nuclear plant shuts down someplace suddenly? And that does happen. How do you make sure that they keep the lights on? You have to have something that's called spinning reserve, the ability to generate electricity quickly. Hydropower does that. If the lights go out, how do you turn things back on? You have to have something that can actually generate electricity in order to be able to turn all the other generating resources back on. Hydropower does that. It's really an amazingly fabulous resource, and it's so incredible here in Chelan County that we have this not just hydropower, but we have lots and lots of hydropower.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. Okay, so hydropower. Let's go there because I know that there's been a lot of press out there about hydropower and dam removal. So more recently, there was the Elwha Dam, which was removed near Port Angeles. It wasn't actually providing any power, but there's also talk about Snake River, and I'm just going to go there. What do you think about folks who are saying, we should consider alternative energy and hydropower may or may not be a part of that future. What comes up for you?
I think the number one thing is that, you know, 20 years of being in a CEO position has taught me one thing, which is you have to set priorities and you have to define what are the biggest and most important things. And, it seems clear that if you look across the Western United States in particular, but even the United States as a whole, that our biggest environmental challenge is climate change. Uh, it's the one thing that affects everybody all the way across the world, and that we need to be doing everything we can to address climate change. And as we think about trying to do that, you generally have a few things that you want to try to do. You want to, first of all, do all the energy efficiency you can. Second, you want to decarbonize the electric power system. Third, you want to take that decarbonized electric power system and you want to use it to be able to decarbonize other fuel sources, other sectors of the economy, primarily transportation and buildings. And then you want to go after the liquid fuels that tend to be the hardest ones to replace, like aviation and marine and et cetera. Uh, so if you're starting from that big picture and you're saying, boy, we want to do all the energy efficiency and we want to decarbonize the electric system and we want to get it as clean as possible, we know that we're going to put a lot of the other renewables, wind and solar, on the system, but that flicking the switch doesn't make the wind blow harder or the sun shine brighter. So you have to have something that is responding to people's usage, whether it's up or down. And of the choices of what's out there, hydropower is the best available choice. It's got these incredible reliability characteristics. It's generally low cost, and it also is carbon free. So we're going to need um, a lot of hydropower in order to make this big transition and to develop a decarbonized electric power system that can support other decarbonization efforts across the economy. So I look at that and say, boy, uh, taking out the Elwha and Glines Canyon dams, and by the way, I think they did have a small, like 5 or 6 megawatt at one point, at least, contribution to the electric power system. Uh, I can kind of understand that. The lower Snake River dams are over 1,000 megawatts of energy and a couple of thousand megawatts of capacity, and those are really big numbers in the power system.
So, to put it in perspective, Chelan has 3 main dams. So how much do you generate?
Uh, we have about 2,000 megawatts of capacity and about 1,100 megawatts of energy. So it's roughly equivalent to the same amount. But remember, we have 5 times the amount of power that we need to serve Chelan County. So what we're talking about is an amount of power that would serve 5 Chelan counties that would come out of the system. The energy component uh, probably could be replaced. The ability to flex and the capacity component, much more difficult to replace. And in fact, in the utility industry today, the holy grail, the thing that we are trying to figure out how to do, is provide what we call balancing services, the ability to bring generation online when the sun sets, or to bring generation online when the wind's not blowing, to be able to make sure that we can continue to serve load in a low cost way and in a reliable way. And beyond hydropower, which does have its limits because there's only so much water available that falls at a large rate, uh, we don't have really good answers in the utility industry today. Batteries are helpful; they're pretty expensive, but they're time limited. Generally, what you can find in the market today is a 4-hour duration, and the 4 hours helps solve some of the problems. But let's say you have an extended cold snap or hot streak, which is the biggest threat to a power system. That's what happened in California when the lights went out in August of 2020. That's what happened in Texas last year when they had the tremendous outages. Uh, those kind of 5 days of really cold or really hot temperatures are incredibly stressful for an electric power system. And batteries really don't help you because you discharge the battery and you're running out of energy. You can't load them up again. So we're looking for solutions there. And right now, I would say it would be very difficult if we start to take out the hydropower to be able to meet our clean energy goals.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the hard part, right? Is that we're not looking at this in isolation. We have demands for electricity right now and into the future as we grow, and also perhaps as electrification increases for things like electric vehicles, but also, a lot of folks in the Pacific Northwest, not in Chelan County, but a lot of folks in, Oregon and on the west side, they use natural gas for heating. And so as we talk about how can we transform our homes and our cars into electric, we're talking about a large amount of electricity and the idea of bringing some of our biggest and cleanest options, not perfect, but some of the better options offline. And well, what do you replace it with? Right? You don't want that spinning load or that reserve to be coming from coal. So these are kind of the trade-offs that we have to talk about. All right.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's the priority setting, right? That's there are lots of things that we would like, but what is it that are our highest priorities? And I certainly would argue that climate change is, very clearly in terms of the legislation that's coming towards the electric power industry. That's the highest priority. That's the thing that we're trying to solve for.
Mhm. So this next one, it comes from within Chelan PUD, and this person is after my heart. I will read you the full question from Micah. So he says it's a two-part question that deals with energy efficiency and conservation. You have 2 decades of experience in this area and just received a national award for your efforts. So the first question is, how do you get people to act for energy conservation? And he means act because many people care about conservation, but not as many take sustained, meaningful actions toward conservation. And the second part is related to our subsidized power. But why don't you answer the first one about getting folks to act for conservation?
Well, let me start by saying I think our energy efficiency group is being incredibly successful at that, right?
Woo!
And let's just do the numbers. So under Initiative 937, every utility in the state is required to look at their cost-effective energy potential and have goals consistent with the plan that's put forth by the Northwest Power and Conservation Council to assure that they are contributing their fair share of the cost-effective energy efficiency in the Northwest, so that the Northwest as a whole is going after the premier resource, new resource that's available, which is energy efficiency. It's the low-cost resource, and it's the clean resource. And when you look at those goals, the energy efficiency group has not only just exceeded them, they have vastly exceeded them over the course of the last 10 years at the energy efficiency group at Chelan. So clearly, the energy efficiency group is being successful at getting people to act and act in ways that create long-term sustainable resources, because all of the stuff that Chelan is acquiring is not something that's ephemeral. It's here today, gone tomorrow. It's stuff that actually an investment has been made, and you're going to see a payback over 10 or 20 years. Uh, and I think the key to that has been providing the right economic incentives. The challenge with energy efficiency is that the consumer doesn't see the full marginal cost, the cost of the new resource that has to be developed on the system if the energy efficiency is not, right? So if we reduce demand, then we don't need to produce as much supply. If we haven't reduced demand, then we have to increase supply, and that's going to be some kind of generating plant someplace. And because the consumer is seeing the retail price and not the full cost of the new resource, that they tend not to act. So we have to change that. And the way we change that is by offering programs. We offer energy efficiency programs, and we provide incentives. In Chelan County, we don't offer our incentives based on the how much would you save at the retail level at our really low retail rates. We offer it based on what's the value to the entire Northwest power system of energy efficiency being put in place, so that we're not having to put in place a new generating resource someplace. And that is the core of the program. Let's make sure we get the economic incentives right and cause people to take action. Even then, people don't always do what makes the most economic sense. My wife likes to tell me, "You are the only economically rational person in the world," and so you have to
There's
come
three
up
of
with.
us.
Okay, great.
We have a
Glad to hear the
spreadsheet for
people
that.
side of it, right? Um, so we got to
So
get the people's hearts and minds, right? And
So
that's the
here's part
challenge.
two of Micah's question, which is related to this. He asks, he says that our subsidized low cost power in Chelan County seems double edged. How do you get people to act when there's even less financial incentive for them to do so compared with other utilities that have higher rates, even though there's a big benefit to the broader population of folks in our area? So, what do you say about the subsidized low power rate?
Well, again, when we get the incentives right based on the full marginal cost, the cost of the replacement resource that's out there, then I think we get the economics right. And so the fact that our rates are low isn't as much of a challenge. But now we have to go after people hearts and minds, right? And hearts and minds are, well, why should I spend time doing this? I've got my life to live, and I'm engaged in raising my kids and going to work and doing all the things that we all have to do. And I think the key there is just really strong marketing programs, that we are pointing out to folks that they have the opportunity to increase their disposable income by participating in our programs. And when you increase your disposable income, then you get to do more of all that stuff that you want to do. You get to do more with your kids. Maybe you don't have to work as long. So that becomes the challenge, and I think that's why we have folks like Lacy, right, to do the kind of work that she does, to try to get the message out there to people about how important it is and how much it's going to make a difference in their lives to be able to take advantage of these energy efficiency programs, and at the same time make a contribution to the welfare of the entire Northwest, including the environmental health of the entire Northwest. So that's my perspective anyway. Lacy, how about you, since you're in this? Would you like to take a
Yeah,
shot at that?
I have big dreams about our rate structure, but I won't get into those right now. Like if we had something that was more, the cost of service plus something like the Alaska plan where we would give money out and people could choose how they wanted to use that, that would really help out our team. But the reality is that the vast majority of our savings from energy efficiency comes from pretty large users. So industrial, ag, a lot of the cold storage facilities and things like that. Those modifications that we do, those deep retrofits of these big buildings, they're making a huge impact. And on top of that, all of the little changes that folks in their home can make add up, right? So I think really it's a community approach. It's not that one building or one sector or one home solves all the problems. It's what each of us does in our home, in our work, and in our organizations within our area that can add up to some pretty significant changes in how much energy we use. Okay, we have a question from Kevin. He's asking, why not a local rooftop solar program that would enable more hydropower to be routed to areas that produce energy from fossil fuels? So I think what Kevin is getting at is 80% of our power that we generate here, we sell elsewhere. So why not have more power generated here, in this case in the form of rooftop solar, so that we could have even more power? I mean, we have lots of sunny days over here that maybe the west side doesn't benefit from. So why not that approach?
We like that idea, actually, and that's one of the things that we're doing is trying to structure our solar programs to be the same as our energy efficiency programs. Our energy efficiency programs are built around the idea that there is a regional marginal cost, the cost of that new generation, and that in general, that regional marginal cost should be what we can get when we sell our hydropower in the market, something close to it anyway. And so to the extent that we offer programs that cause people to install solar, then it allows us to sell our power and sell our power at prices that is at the going wholesale rate. And we have definitely seen a dramatic increase in the value of hydropower in the last year to 18 months, uh, probably as a result of the Clean Energy Transformation Act, but it's also the other laws that are being passed in Western states. So people are recognizing that hydropower has real value as they're trying to find ways to be able to be clean, affordable, and reliable. And we're interested in trying to find ways to increase value to Chelan customer owners, and a way to do that is if we can get solar on folks, get solar to be adopted, and reduce the usage at the local area, and then we can sell more. We can translate that into value for all Chelan customers. So that's something we're very interested in, and we have some program efforts that we'll be rolling out over the course of the next year.
Yeah, Dr. Jim is on it. I just talked to him this morning about what he's coming up with as alternatives for supporting more solar installations in a way that helps everyone out, people who are installing it, the utility, and customer owners. All right, let's pivot to EVs. Peter says that electric cars are good ways to reduce the carbon footprint and save money driving because the power cost is so low. It's true. Jim estimates that it's about 30 cents a gallon if you go with an electric vehicle. Why not encourage more electric cars in Chelan County?
Well, I think we are interested in finding ways to support customers where they want to, and I think the key to that is going to be electric charging infrastructure. So we have some electric charging infrastructure that's out there today, and the new infrastructure bill that was passed by the Congress creates a lot of financial support for utilities to advance and increase that charging infrastructure that would be out there. So I do see that coming in the next couple of years. The um, the fast charging infrastructure is very expensive, and it's hard for the utility to recover its investment because it's so expensive, and yet it seems really critical to make electric charging interesting and attractive to people. So the Congress has recognized that and has passed this bill, and we certainly intend to be quite active in trying to participate in the funding that's likely to come through the state. So we'll be participating in grant programs and seeking funding from Olympia to try to participate in those. Uh, in terms of the cost of charging, what we're trying to do is get the cost of charging to be uh, in a place where it doesn't lead to large cost shifts from Chelan County customers to people who live elsewhere, and that's a bit tricky. This has always been a problem that our rates can be so attractive. So we have a lot of folks who come here to charge from other places, and so we're trying to make sure that we're at least covering our cost of production as we sell electricity in those to those markets. And that I'll be honest, that I've heard a lot in the time that I've been here, and one of them is folks really appreciate the low rates here, and they want us to take care and be protective of the fact that things that would make sure that rates are not being subsidized someplace else to the detriment of Chelan County customers. So we definitely take that into account. This is the thing about being a public power utility. You listen to your customers, and you make sure that you're trying to act in their best interests all the time. And so we're trying to find that balance point with respect to EVs, where we're encouraging EVs, particularly for Chelan County customer owners, without doing something that would create a cost for Chelan County customer owners.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And if you're just joining us, Steve Wright is here with us today, our special guest on Power Hour episode number 11. If you have questions, you can drop them into the chat or comments on YouTube or Facebook. We can see those, and Steve will answer them live. I have a question here for you. This one, do you have any pointers from Kirk H? Just kidding. Kirk, we love you. We do. So Steve is actually retiring. If you haven't heard yet, he's retiring at the end of the month. And Kirk Hudson will be our new fearless leader in 2022. Do you have any pointers for him? He didn't ask, by the way, but we are.
Yeah, he doesn't need any pointers. He's going to be a really terrific leader here, a strong, ethical leader, and I have a lot of confidence that having watched him operate for the last 8 years here, he's going to do a terrific job. Uh, the number one thing in public power is that your customers are your owners, and it's really not about what you want to do. It's about being stewards of assets on behalf of the public and trying to figure out, okay, so what is it that the public wants us to do, and how do we be successful at that? There is a really fascinating culture here in Chelan County, and particularly at Chelan County PUD, which I've so much appreciated, and that is uh, thinking about the long term. Our vision statement is built around best value for the most people for the longest period of time. And I want to particularly underscore that longest period of time, because utilities across the country can get caught up in the next rate increase and making choices that are good for the short term and not necessarily good for the long term. And that is not true in Chelan County. The decision to build the hydropower projects is an amazingly good decision that must have been a hard decision at the time, because you could buy power for less than what would be produced at Rocky Reach in particular. And yet the county said, no, it's so important to think about the long term, or we're going to take that gamble. And now, of course, Chelan County has some of the lowest rates in the country, and likely will for an extended period of time just because of the availability of those resources. That has spilled over into lots of other things. It spilled over into the decision about how to manage for salmon and steelhead to go above and beyond what the Endangered Species Act requires to assure that protection is provided that essentially creates no net impact, that any mortality that would be due to the passage of juveniles or adults through the hydropower system that Chelan County owns and operates would be fully mitigated. That was an amazing step, and I think a really thoughtful and appropriate step, recognizing that over time people will want more and more commitment to environmental protection. Uh, that's the culture of this place, and that is the culture of this county. And I believe that Kirk, having spent so many years here, is fully embracing of that concept of do things that are right for the long term, and that will pay off. So that would be my one thing, and I don't feel like I really need to tell Kirk that because I know he's already understanding it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think the board made the right choice in bringing Kirk on. So Tika has a question about what you plan on doing after you retire, and if you plan to stay somewhat involved in the utility industry, maybe through writing.
The honest answer to that question is I don't know. What I want to do is spend more time doing things that are just what I think about, and uh, because you tend to, it's for me at least, my mind kind of makes up where I want to go based on these are the things that I like to think about. So therefore, these are the things that I'm going to go work on. And I'm interested in management in the public sector. I've got a book that I'm about 3/4 of the way through writing that I'm committed to finishing, and I've committed to doing some training for some of our trade associations based on leadership in the public sector. So I
Wait a
will
minute,
do.
hold on. Tell me more about your book. This is news to me.
Well, it's a book I've been working on ever since I left Bonneville, so it's unfortunately it's not really news. It's old news that I'm working on it, and it just needs to get finished. Uh, it's it's really not an energy book, and it's not an electricity book. It's a book that's built around how do you manage in the public sector, and it has a very old-fashioned theme in it in today's world. It speaks a lot to the importance of building bipartisan solutions, and I'm just committed to that. It's been a big part of my career is finding bipartisan solutions, and I know it's hard, and I know there's lots of people who say it doesn't happen anymore, and I just don't think that's true. I think that you can find bipartisan solutions. You might have to work harder than you did before, but I'm still in favor of going out and trying to make them happen. And I think there's a lot that we can do in the public sector by starting working at the grassroots and understanding what people want, and building bipartisan solutions from the bottom up. So, want to finish that, and it may be that nobody reads it, and that's okay. It's just a labor of love for me and something I
Tika will
believe
read
in.
it. She's got you.
Great. Thank you,
Tika and
Tika.
I will buy a
Oh,
copy.
I'll be so happy. You can be my first two
Yeah.
actual readers.
Yeah, we'll come to your
Uh,
book signing. It'll be great. So I have a related question to this. So you have a master's degree in public administration. You give a training called Leading Through the Power of Public Service. And whenever you talk about public service, there's a little bit of a twinkle in your eye. Why? Where is this passion coming from? What is your passion for public service about?
Uh, you know, I think everybody has to find the thing that motivates them. And this is, I said, good, I will do the things that I think about because that's what I enjoy doing, and in my retirement. And that's how I got to the place that I'm at. Because I was in college. I was going to be a sports writer. That was my goal. And long story, I decided, no, I don't want to be a sports writer. Then I got into psychology, and then another long story, decided, no, I don't want to do that. uh, Took a political science class, got involved in lobbying the state legislature some, and my heart went pitter patter and went, this is what I like to do. This is what I really enjoy. I love
Pitter patter
having.
at the legislature?
Sure enough,
Okay.
I'm just crazy enough to, because I like doing things that I think make a meaningful and positive difference in people's lives. And I think operating in the public sector, that's the fundamental goal. It's the, the one of the big differences in the public sector, you're there for the community. And the private sector has its place. I don't want to say that it's not the right thing. It's done great things for our country, and I believe in capitalism and all those kinds of things. But for me, what really motivates me is doing things that are built around success in the community and trying to find things where you can bring people together and get them to work cooperatively and collaboratively. Uh, and I, figured that out, and that's why I went to graduate school in public administration, and that's why I looked for jobs in the public sector, and that's why I spent, the last 40 years working in public power. So, yeah, it's just the thing that works for me, and I think I know many of us tell our kids, find the thing that you really love to do, and you'll be good at it. That was the thing for me.
Oh, that's an amazing story. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. And I went to your training within the first week or two that I was hired on, and it showed. It showed that this was something that you were incredibly passionate about and something that you've devoted so much of your life to. So thank you for sharing that and bringing that here.
Thanks for the question.
All right. Tika has another one. What are you going to miss most about having a regular job? Just regular general manager work.
Being relevant. you know, um, Titles do matter. So, when I was at Bonneville, it's a funny thing that they say that when you have a title that people laugh a little harder at your jokes and they just tell you how smart you are, and you're just more relevant when you have big jobs. And the Bonneville job was a really big job, and coming to Chelan's been great. I've loved it. It's not as big a job, and so I just wasn't as smart all of a sudden. And people didn't listen to me the same way they used to. That was it was kind of hard for me in the beginning to figure that out. It's like, I still think I'm smart, but maybe not. Maybe I wasn't that smart to begin with. And so, the whole being relevant, that your decisions have such a big impact. It's the reason why you take on these jobs, right? You want to have impact. You want to be able to make decisions that are important to people's lives, and hopefully make good decisions, and do meaningful work. And so, stepping away from that and recognizing that I won't be viewed as smart, and my ideas won't carry the same kind of weight. All of that will be a bit challenging, I'm sure. I hope to replace that with the rewards of doing the things that I really want to do every day. And there are there there are burdens that come with leadership. There are things that you have to do that
For the
aren't necessarily.
record, I don't know if you have to review my work late at night and give very detailed feedback on board you don't have to do any of that as a leader, but you do.
If you want a successful organization, I think you do, right? Because the idea is to put you in a position to be really successful when you appear before the board, right? Because that's the role of a leader, is in part governance translation. What is it that the public wants? What is it that the board wants? And then translate that for employees, and the same the other way. What is it that employees are trying to do? Why is that a good thing for the community? And explain that to the board. So it's that connection point. That's a really important role for a leader, is translating governance through to be able to make sure that the values, the expectations that the community wants, and the board as their elected representatives are being communicated through. So we're working on the right things, and also communing back up to the board. What are the opportunities that we have to be able to do something that's going to create a better community?
Yeah, for sure. So I have to show this. So Daniel, thank you. He says shout out to the Power Hour sessions. He is looking forward to transitioning from state service to working for Chelan PUD very soon. And Daniel, we're very excited to have you.
Yeah, we need people like this. Chelan PUD, we want the best and the brightest. So we're happy to hear you're coming over to join the team.
Woohoo! Yeah, maybe you'll be our next guest, Daniel. Let me know when you're in the office. So So you're leaving on the 31st. That's your last day. You've insisted that you're not leaving until the 31st. So thanks for staying around. But walk me through January 3rd. It's your first like non-holiday, and you can do essentially whatever you want to do. What's that day for you?
It's got a few different things in it, most likely. But remember that I'm coming back to when I wake up in the morning, I get to decide what I want to do. That's the best part. Um, but I suspect that it will have a few components to it. Uh, so exercise is a big part of my life, and so there'll be something there. And I'm hoping, I really didn't start downhill skiing until I was in my 20s, and my kids downhill ski, and they're just way better than me, and they're just so much faster than me, and I, I bore them, and I have this goal that I'm going to try to become a better downhill skier so that I can at least kind of keep up with them. That would be really fun. But what I've really always loved to do is cross country ski. So, I have to choose between, am I going to try to get better at downhill skiing, or am I going to do the thing I love, which is go get on my cross country skis and go. Um, Hopefully I'll spend a little bit of time working on my book and enjoying that. And I will be planning a trip to a warm weather destination because I get cold easily, and I've always loved warm weather better than cold weather. And so I expect to be taking trips to warm places, including in March, spending time sitting at a lot of spring training baseball games in Arizona.
Cool. I had no idea that I nailed it with your little avatar and the baseball. That's awesome.
You did. I do
That's
love
great.
baseball. This won't be the first time to go to spring training. I've been going for years, although I haven't really done it since moving here. So I'm looking forward to get back into that.
Okay. Who's your team?
I've moved around the country a lot, so I have a lot of different teams over time. But right now, I probably mostly follow the Mariners.
Okay. All right. Yeah, don't be a traitor.
Right. It was hard for me because I was an Oakland fan for a lot of years. It took me a few years to make the transition up here.
I'm not going to touch that one. Okay. All right. So I have another question for you. So just for folks who are listening in, you have a 40-year career in public power. So you led the BPA, which runs about 31 hydropower facilities, a nuclear plant as well. You've advised to large utilities in California about potential renewable energy generation into the future, and you're our general manager. So you have all this experience across various jurisdictions for public power. What was your biggest challenge?
It turns out that's a really easy question because it was the most scarring event of my career. So I was named to be the acting Bonneville administrator in November of 2000. And if you look, it's really almost the date that I started was the date that power prices started to go crazy in the West. And for the next 5 months, we experienced prices that range from $500 to $3,000 a megawatt hour. And of course, the prices normally are the $20 to $50 a megawatt hour range. Wow, what a series of unbelievable events. I've given a speech on this, and it's available someplace on the web, I think, about what it was like to go through that. But it um, it was very hard because it was a whole bunch of choices around uh, incredibly costly events that were going to do a lot of damage, not just to ratepayers' pocketbooks, but was going to cost a lot of people their jobs. More than 10,000 people lost their jobs in the Northwest during that period. We had to compromise on environmental protection. We were trying to increase supply into the marketplace, and so we did less spill for salmon. Uh, and then having to sit in front of, because Bonneville, as the largest utility in the Northwest, tends to get the most media attention, and so it can be the face of the utility industry. Doing a lot of media and doing a lot of town halls and a lot of public meetings, and having members of the public sit in front of us and essentially say, I didn't do anything wrong. I was just living my life. And all of a sudden, this thing that you were in charge of is going wacky. And this is having an incredible impact on my life. I'm losing my job. I'm trying to manage the school system, and I have to choose between whether we're going to have janitors or teachers. Uh, you're doing damage to the iconic species of the Northwest, salmon. It was just an incredible time to recognize just how important the electric power industry is to the Northwest, how much of a difference it makes in people's lives, even though for the most part they don't recognize it or know it. But when things go wrong, it becomes life changing for them. And so from that, I took away that we have tried to keep electric power rates as low as possible. Most of my career before then, I would say the industry, what we were trying to do was keep rates as low as possible and trying to squeeze as much out of the system as we could. And we got to a point where we made it fragile. And when it became brittle, it broke. And at that moment, the cost was extraordinary. The challenge since then has been to try to build a system that is adequate, that makes sure that we have enough power to meet the needs of the system, and to do so in a way that meets the goals of the public at large, which again, I'll come back to clean, affordable, and reliable. So it wants all of those things. And that's one of the reasons why invest in assets and people has been such a big and prominent piece of the strategic plan for us here at Chelan. I just fundamentally believe we had a similar type of goal at Bonneville, because I ended up staying for another 11 years after the energy crisis. And the focus there was the same thing. It was let's try to make sure that we're building a system that creates enough supply so that we will not again run into a supply demand problem. Uh, yeah, there were lots of bad things that happened. There were the Enrons and Dynegy's and Reliance of the world who took advantage of that system. But the fundamental problem was a supply and demand problem. And we can choose not to be victims. We can choose to control our own destiny, but we have to do it with foresight and planning and lots of early actions. And so the goal is try to make sure that we have an adequate system. And I'm still very involved in that in the Northwest. Very involved in this program to try to develop resource adequacy structures that will be permanent, that the Northwest would adopt to make sure that we're doing all that we can to limit the exposure that customers will be. Customers, the environment, the public at large will experience the kind of things that we did in 2001.
Wow. That was a that was a big one. I can't imagine being in that position where you're taking on this leadership role, right, as everything starts to kind of fail.
It is difficult to describe, and that's one of the reasons I gave this speech and got it recorded because I wanted to share with people. It's 20 years now, right? And a lot of people wouldn't remember that, and I will never be able to forget it. So if we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it. The challenge here is to try to make sure that we don't repeat those circumstances.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. So I have one more question for you. If anyone listening has questions, now is the time. I'm going to ask my question and anything else that comes into the chat. And then I think we're going to let Steve go. So, my question is what's coming? I feel like you have your pulse on public power in the Northwest. There's a lot of chatter about a lot of different things, especially as the Clean Energy Transformation Act has happened in Washington and similar legislation in other states is coming. So, what do you foresee in the next decade or two as we transition?
Well, you're exactly right, Lacey, to focus, first of all, on the clean energy transformation because that is the big thing. The electric utility industry, as quasi-monopolists in effect, have to be responsive to the public, and the public is being very clear through their state legislatures that the clean energy transformation is the key. And so as we make this huge and dramatic, I mean, it's just hard to describe how big this really is, uh, transformation to reducing the use of fossil fuels in the system. There's going to be a bunch of very difficult and challenging points along the way. First of all, we have to build a lot of renewable resources. and that is going to become more and more difficult. We're seeing some of the opposition that's beginning to sprout here on the east side of the Cascades. I think people had generally expected that you could go to more rural areas and be able to build lots of renewable resources, and there's some opposition that's showing up in the Tri-City areas to the large wind project that's being proposed down there, and we've even seen a little bit some opposition to the solar projects that are proposed up on the east side of the Columbia River here. Uh, so we have to find ways to work through that because we need thousands and thousands of megawatts of renewable resources to make this work. We need a lot of energy efficiency too, and we need to be very aggressive on the energy efficiency front. Uh, as we build renewables, we're going to need more transmission, and uh, we we did a study as part of the public generating pool a few years ago that looked at what would it take to get to 80% carbon-free electricity in Washington State, and it was huge. It was 6 to 7 major new transmission lines, and we have difficulty building even one now in the Northwest. So uh, working through those kinds of issues of how will we find the replacement resources and get them built so that they can provide service to people will be a critical piece. Finding that holy grail, where's the clean capacity going to come from? The hydro system has its limits, and it is well short of what it's necessary to hit the 80% carbon-free electricity in the Northwest kind of goal. How will we find that? We're going to have to be trying lots of new things. We'll have to try longer duration batteries. We'll have to try hydrogen. We're just going to be out there uh, trying a lot of new technologies, and we have to make a massive technology investment. The federal government will need to do this in order to make that work, but utilities are going to have to be trying these things to find out what actually does work. So a lot of this is happening. Think of this as all happening across the Northwest. The areas that will tend to bear the brunt of that will be the investor-owned utility community because public power has been able to rely on the Bonneville Power Administration and facilities, hydropower facilities like the ones we have here in Chelan that were built by public power entities. There's a much smaller segment of hydropower in the Northwest that goes to the investor-owned utility. So they've got a lot bigger transition to make.
Hmm.
And so the public utilities will be seeking to make this transition, but the IOUs are going to have a really hard time. And historically, what tends to happen is that creates stresses between the investor-owned and the consumer-owned utility community because there's who should pay for what kinds of questions that come up. So I anticipate big questions over the development of all these resources and then big questions over who's going to pay for it.
Yeah. Always the question, right? Everything sounds like a good idea until you see the price tag for some things.
And, we all like to find something that somebody else will pay for. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't think about that tension between, who owns all of the generation and most of it being in public utilities versus, there's some large IOUs that serve a lot of people, but they are investor owned, and so they have a different way of capturing the electricity. Okay.
Now, at Chelan, I will say I expect us to help to bridge that gap because a lot of our sales of our hydropower has gone to investor-owned utilities historically. And
Mm.
we've identified the investor-owned utility market as the priority as we see some of our existing long-term contracts rolling off over the next few years. We see the investor-owned utility community as the most likely market for us to sell into. So there are ways to bridge these gaps, and hopefully Chelan can be a big part of that.
Okay. All right. Well, Steve, thank you so much. I don't see any other questions in the chat, but is there anything that you want to leave off with for posterity before we sign out?
Oh, I just want to say, first of all, thanks to the folks who work here. It's just been a joy to work here. This is such a fun place, and it has such a tremendous history and culture that's been really enjoyable. And I hope uh, that the folks who work here will continue to think big. What I was impressed by when I first came here was how big of a dream it was to take on building the hydropower projects, how big of a dream it was to to then translate that into the park system that we have and the fiber system that we have, and taking on the challenges of water and wastewater. Those were big thinkers. And, the theme for me around here is uh, people think big in Chelan County. And I hope that's the challenge for the future too, that folks take on, is to not feel constrained by we can't get things done. Uh, really big things can get done here. And I believe that people will continue to do them here because that's the culture of this county.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Steve. Thank you so much for being our guest, and thank you for all of your years of service, both here in Chelan County, and also, with the BPA and in the industry at large. Your contribution, as Tika mentioned, is was a really big one, and we expect to see that book of yours and maybe some book signing opportunities as well. So don't be a stranger as we move forward.
Lacey, thanks so much for the opportunity. You're doing such a great job finding ways to communicate, and I really appreciate everything that you're doing here.
Thanks. Thank you. And for everyone, we are going to see you on the Power Hour in the new year, 2022, if you can believe that. And we're going to sign off with Steve. Bye, Steve.
Bye.